QQQI, or the NEOS Nasdaq 100 High Income ETF, that offers a 14.28% distribution yield, pays a dividend monthly, and that has a very specific strategy that not only generates income for investors, but also the potential for upside. Could be an amazing high income ETF to look into if you would consider yourself more of a dividend income focused investor. Now in this video, we're going to break down QQQI, explain what this ETF is, how it works, and if or if not, I'm personally planning on adding a ton of it to my long-term dividend growth portfolio. So if you would consider yourself an investor looking to generate a ton of income on a monthly basis, but also want potential to upside, stick around and let's get right into this one. Real quick, for those that haven't already, make sure to go to the first link in my description and grab my new dividend investing ebook, where I share exactly how I went from $0 invested to now earning over $6,000 on a monthly basis and over $1 million invested in the markets. Along with the ebook, you're also going to receive my custom dividend tracker, where you can track your dividend progress on an ongoing basis and reach your dividend investing goals. So make sure to grab yourself a copy of my dividend investing ebook and the new dividend tracker today. It's the first link in my description. So first things first, this ETF is brought to us by the same exact providers of SPYI, which, if you guys have been following along, is one of my favorite higher income style ETFs across the entire market as of right now, because of the very interesting high quality strategy the ETF offers. So for that alone, I'm already very interested in learning more about this ETF, just because I'm such a big fan of SPYI. Now, SPYI obviously tracks the constituents of the S&P 500, where I'm guessing this one, without even knowing too much about it, tracks the Nasdaq 100, which tends to be a little bit higher beta and more option premiums, which means probably, just like I see right here, bigger yields. Now, the first thing that stands out above this ETF is the fact that it has a 0.68% expense ratio, which is not cheap by any means, but with a 14.28% distribution yield, along with potential upside, and just knowing how management heavy some of these ETFs can be, I think 0.68% is more or less fair. But looking a little bit deeper into this ETF, the fund's inception date was basically the end of January, so this ETF has not been around all that long. So we have to take all the data and everything that we collect with a grain of salt, because we are going to want to see how this ETF performs long term to know whether or not the strategy is really sound. But speaking of strategy, it says right here, targeted benefits of QQQI's strategy. Number one, the fund seeks to distribute high monthly income generated from investing of the constituents of the Nasdaq 100 index and implementing data-driven call option strategy. Number two, actively managed by NEOS, the fund seeks to take advantage of tax loss harvesting opportunities in addition to utilizing NDX index options classified as Section 1256 contracts, which are subject to lower 60/40 tax rates. So basically, just like what they're doing with SPYI, they're also looking to do with QQQI. By utilizing this classification, they're trying to get the tax rate lower and lower, which I love as a long-term investor. Then lastly, number three, also just like SPYI, they are also going to be looking to buy and sell NDX index options, which is super awesome considering a lot of these covered call style ETFs only sell options, which means there's not going to be much upside potential. But with this strategy, there definitely can be, because they're not only selling, but also at times going to be purchasing NDX index options. So far, I really like what I see. And looking at the distributions, it looks like right under 60 cents, more or less. Again, we only have 3 months of distributions to go off of. But so far back in February, we have 59.3 cents. Then in March, 60.4 cents. And then just as of recently in April, 58.6 cents, which is consistently just under 60 cents, which is generating a distribution yield of 14+%, which is massive. Now, as far as the holdings go for QQQI, we're looking at names like Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, basically like we were told, the constituents of the Nasdaq 100, which honestly, in my opinion, as a younger long-term investor, I don't mind having more exposure to any of these names whatsoever, because they do, for the most part, in my opinion, to move upward quickly in bull markets. But again, either way, with that cover call overlay, this ETF is going to be generating most likely tons of income through the selling of options either way. So now that we generally know how this ETF works, the strategy behind it, obviously we don't have all that much data to go off of because this ETF has only been around since the end of January. But one of the main concerns for me, and probably for a lot of you guys, is if or if not this ETF is going to decay over time, because let's be real here, a lot of these higher income ETFs that pay north of 8, 12, 10, 15, 20% yield as far as distributions go, have the likelihood, or I guess commonly, decay over time. Which, even though a lot of us more income focused, cash flow focused investors don't mind for the most part if it's a small decay, we don't want our investments degrading over the long term. Now take this with a grain of salt because this ETF has only been around for a few months, but the ETF is down 1.61% in the max time frame, so it is actually in the red as far as price return goes. But of course, this ETF has paid a ton of dividends over time. And if we were to look at the total return performance, this is dividends plus, of course, price return or negative price return included. If we looked at QQQI next to the S&P 500, and this is just between February and April, so again, not much time to go off of, but basically S&P 500 is just under 7% total return, and QQQI is just over 5.6%. So understanding the strategy that this ETF offers, I think it does have the potential to at least trade sideways or up a little bit, especially if the management is purchasing NDX options during times where the market has the most potential upside. But either way, because the basket of holdings this ETF has and the cover call overlay, this ETF should easily be able to return 12 to 14% per year as far as distributions go. But the biggest thing investors have to worry about, of course, is decay. Just like what a lot of income-focused investors have experienced with things like TSLY, the Yield Max Tesla Option Income Strategy ETF. Now, I'm by no means comparing TSLY to this ETF, but I'm just saying that ETFs that promise massive distributions a lot of times come along with their own issues. Now, something else I wanted to share with everyone and something that I found pretty interesting is that if an investor was to have invested just $10,000 into QQQI during the inception date of January 30th of this year, of course, and held onto the shares until now, with on top of that reinvesting the dividends every single month, that investor would have purchased this ETF at a starting price of $49.84 per share, which it's currently trading a tad bit lower than that. Now, because this ETF paid altogether so far at least $1.79 in dividends per share, this would have given an investor, as of right now at least, which is just 0.24 years so far, because again, this ETF is brand new, a total return of 2.63%, or if this was to be annualized out throughout the rest of this year, around 11.15% annualized gain. Now, honestly, that's not bad whatsoever, and of course, it's way too early to know, but if this ETF could pay investors a ton of income ongoingly and return, say, somewhere around 8 to 10 to 12% with price return plus dividends included, because again, total return is the important metric here, I don't think, honestly, any income-oriented, dividend-oriented investors would mind that whatsoever. And maybe what I'll do later on, maybe in a few months, is make another video about this ETF and come back to this and see what it's done until then. But up until now, a $10,000 investment with dividends reinvested looks pretty good if you ask me. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is if or if not, I'm personally going to add more QQQI to my long-term dividend growth portfolio. And I actually just checked in one of my portfolios. I do own a single share of this ETF. As of right now, I own one share. And after digging a little bit further into this ETF, understanding the strategy, and because I am such a big fan of SPYI strategy, the NEOS S&P 500 high income ETF, I think I will definitely add some shares of QQQI to my long-term portfolio to enhance the overall income potential, and because for the most part, I do think the strategy is very sound. Now with that, because QQQI does have a very expensive expense ratio compared to a lot of other ETFs across the market, even things like JETB and JETQ, I probably won't ever make this ETF a large position in my overall portfolio, but I definitely do plan on grabbing some shares here and there, especially more on red days. But as far as the NEOS NASDAQ 100 high income ETF goes, what this ETF has to offer and the potential massive income this ETF can return to investors, I want to hear from you guys down below. Are you currently adding this ETF to your portfolio as of right now? And if not, what other higher income ETFs that are super high quality have you been adding to as of recently? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.